Yeah, dude, did you get a chance to check out this little Twitter exchange between
Oh yeah, you sent
Candace
it to me
Owens?
like a day or two ago. I feel like.
Yeah, this was breaking the other day on Twitter. A little bit of right on right violence over
Oh,
here.
the piranhas eating each other.
Yup. Candace Owens of the Daily Wire says no government anywhere has a right to commit genocide ever. There is no justification for a genocide. I can't believe this even needs to be said or is even considered the least bit controversial to state. And obviously, that seems like a pretty innocuous tweet, genocide bad. But of course, this comes in the context of the Israel Palestine conflict and her cohorts and colleagues over at the Daily Wire and basically in conservative media at large have really been waving the Israel flag and basically just cheering on their slaughter of thousands and thousands of innocent Palestinian civilians and children. So Candace Owens putting this out again might not seem very special or noteworthy, but because of the fact that her colleagues have been
Wait, did
so
Candace
pro-Israel.
Owens drop? Oh wait, no, Dave Rubin blocked us. Sorry, I was trying to
Yeah.
remember why we were logged in as screen feeds. And then I was like, wait, Brave
Yup.
Dubin, he blocked the Vanguard. LOL, buddy. We're just trying to talk about our ideas. Our ideas, man.
Yup. And of course, Dave Rubin, who's about to chime in on this Candace Owens tweet, has recently revealed himself as a total freaking hypocrite. I mean, obviously, that was clear to most of us, but in case it wasn't, he recently went full mask off when he cheered on the censorship of pro-Palestinian students and protesters. Yeah, so here's this Candace Owens tweet. Let's check what Dave Rubin had to say. He says, well as I'm sure you know, Candace, the Palestinian population has 5x'd in a few decades. But thank you for taking a strong stand against Hamas's stated genocide of the Jews, which is in their charter. And he posts this map here about, showing that the Palestinian population has gone up, which kind of misses the point. I mean, even if the Palestinian population has gone up, that doesn't change the fact that the Israeli government is absolutely engaging in genocidal war crimes and that they're absolutely engaged in a campaign of ethnic cleansing with a genocidal end goal. So yeah, it's kind of irrelevant. You can't just bring up this stat to wipe away all of the crimes and horrific actions, unjustifiable, horrific crimes against civilians, displacement of millions of people, with a graph. It's crazy. But what did you think about this, Zach, before we get into Candace's response?
Yeah, it is irrelevant. And it's a clear tactic to say, hey, oh, we haven't entirely erased this population. Look, there's still, 5.5 million people left. And we have relegated them to one of the most densely populated small slivers of Earth humanly possible. And we've mandated they stay there in what is essentially an open air prison. That is the context that is being left out by Rave Dubin over here. And obviously, it always comes back to, do you condemn Hamas? Oh, thank you for standing against Hamas, and never anything about the Palestinian people. Imagine watching what we've watched. What's undeniable: the dead children, the devastation, the blown up blocks of fucking neighborhoods, the schools that were blown to smithereens, hospitals, etc. The absolute disregard for human life and anything sacred. Churches that have been standing for hundreds of years, places of worship of all kinds. I shouldn't say churches. But you're like, oh, hey, but there's still 5 million of them left, dude. That's not a genocide. That's your fucking response?
Yeah.
Like, Dave Rubin, what a villain.
Yeah. Total insanity. I think I can pull up Candace's response now. She says, me, genocide is always bad. Dave Rubin, why won't you condemn Hamas? Absolutely demented.
Bro, what's crazy is that Candace Owens got him right there.
I know.
Literally, she got him. I've never wanted to give points to Candace Owens, right? But when you're right, you're right. She got Dave Rubin. Wow. What a low bar, but she finally cleared something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Dave Rubin, once again, I didn't ask you to condemn them. I thanked you for condemning them. And I do again. Wow. Such a weasel. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's not what you were talking about, Dave.
Also, it's just really indicative of who his remaining audience is. Like, I'm like, who does listen to Dave Rubin? I think it's like old people, like boomers.
Oh
This is the
yeah.
kind of
Oh
logic that
yeah.
appeals to boomers.
Yeah, I don't think anyone that's like terribly hip in the intellectual sense is still listening to Dave Rubin. I think it is a lot of boomers, and just like a lot of people that kind of fancy themselves like enlightened centrists, but who are actually just right wingers, as is usually the case when it comes to quote unquote enlightened centrists. But yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting. Do you have any theories, Zach, as to why Candace Owens is kind of coming out here and pushing back on the just 100% pro-Israeli rhetoric from some of her colleagues in right-wing media, obviously, namely Ben Shapiro, who she's basically subtweeting here. But also, obviously, Dave Rubin, who chimed in and got pretty upset.
I mean, I have no clue, to be honest. Maybe I guess I could say there's a sliver of a chance that deep, 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 deep down, some like it was a bridge too far. What she was seeing, which just you know amplifies for people and illustrates for you how horrible it is. That enough is enough, and maybe she has seen all of the allusions to the horrible crimes in the past that were absolutely committed against the Jewish people and people of the Jewish faith in Europe, and saying, hey, like, I am massively opposed to that. And I'm also massively opposed to what I'm seeing over here. Maybe, just maybe, it's gotten so bad and so horrible that even a villainous, callous, right wing media funded goon like Candace Owens, who is just a straight up pawn, a figurehead, a stooge for right wing talking points 99.9% of the time. Maybe what she's seen is so horrifying, so devastating that she wants to push back against it just a little bit. I don't know. The extremely callous version of that, and I think it's worth pointing out just because of her history as like a fucking right wing, cancer merchant, as they say, is that a lot of people in her audience hate Jewish people. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to believe it's the former. It could very well be the latter. I think I have to be honest and say that the latter could be a possibility. Is that what you were going to get into, Gavin?
I think it might have something to do with that. I'm not 100% sure, but it's also definitely true that in the kind of like post Trump era, also the post Ukraine Russia conflict era, it's definitely a lot more in vogue on the right to be against the funding of basically any other foreign government, kind of the America first logic of like, why are we spending any taxpayer money funding whatever the fuck Israel is doing when there's so many people at home that need help, like that logic has become a lot more popular on the right. You see people like Vivek Ramaswamy and obviously Donald Trump himself sometimes making those sorts of arguments. Obviously, when Trump was president, it's not like he withheld funding to Israel or anything like that. He was incredibly pro-Israel. I'm pretty sure Netanyahu like named a town after him or
Bro,
something.
Donald, that's what's crazy, guys. That's what's
Yeah.
crazy. Don't let anybody gaslight you out of this. It's a two-edged sword, and it's good to slaughter both conservatives and liberals. One, Joe Biden right now is staying the course of what Donald Trump's policy would be, right? He has never disputed the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem, right? Which is something that would have been unthinkable to do before Donald Trump just brazenly did it. Go back. I remember I read a lot about, and I'm not an expert on this shit, and I try not to pretend to be, but if you go back and read his like Middle East like peace agreement plan, right, that was going on under the Trump administration, it was a massive land grab for the
Yep.
from the Palestinians for Israel. We remember covering the just the people that were run out of their homes in Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. That was a big international there was a big humanitarian outcry internationally about that because it was just clear as day in occupation, excising people from their homes and stealing it. It was settler colonialism in the modern era. It was something that was, I think, for the first time people who are me and Gavin's age really got to see that, right? I mean, 2018 onward was, I feel like, for me, the introduction to that conflict, something that I didn't really know
Same.
anything about until I guess that's shameful, but it wasn't until that time
I
in
mean,
my
we were
life where,
pretty young.
yeah, I know, but you think about it, it's such a global atrocity. It seems like the kind of thing that you would have at least heard about in high school, but we were not, like, at least where I went to high school, that was not something that we ever delved into, even in, like, you know, American studies and any of the, like, newspaper classes that I took.
Right. Right. Um, one more comment from Candace Owens here. And this one does kind of piss me off, I'm not going to lie, because I think she's being a little bit cowardly here. She says, in short, if the blanket statement that genocide is wrong upsets you in any way, then you need to check yourself. I said exactly what I meant and won't be backing down or apologizing or further clarifying the statement. And that's what kind of annoys me. I'm like, why not further clarify the statement? Why not just take a position? Are you afraid to say that you believe Israel is committing a genocide? Like, is that what the issue is? Why not just say it if that's what you think? It seems pretty obvious that's what you think, and seems pretty obvious that you're correct. That at least that's what they're attempting to do, or at least their actions could be described as genocidal. So yeah, I'm not really sure why she won't get specific and actually hash out the disagreement here with her colleagues, because clearly she seems to be at odds with much of her ideological cohorts, which is interesting. But like I said, I do wish she would kind of finish them off with actually being specific and driving home the point.
Yeah, to play devil's advocate, which again, I don't know why I would to the defense of Candace Owens, but I think maybe she feels like she's got him here by the fact that he's mauling so hard and she hasn't even taken a political stance, that he's just fucking chomping at the bit to kind of come at her and, like, frame it in a certain way that's, you know, you know, potentially what she meant, potentially not what she meant. Obviously, it wasn't what she meant, right? But I guess there was a way for him to spin it like that. That was his, like, tongue-in-cheek idea. His 80 IQ points hard at work to try and come up with a burn. And I think that she feels like potentially she just laid it all out to bear there. The fact that he just took the, what was otherwise an innocuous, universally agreed upon statement, genocides are bad, okay. No, well, what about Hamas? Thank you for calling out Hamas. And it's like, oh, are you trying to hide something? Are you projecting a little bit right now? Clearly you are. And I think that, if I'm being as charitable as I could possibly be in both instances of my reading, that's maybe what she's saying. She's like, I'm not further clarifying it because I'm not indulging you. And I think she feels like potentially, I don't know, I'm repeating myself, but you know what I mean. What do you think about that, Gavin?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I do wish she would just take a stance though, instead of these like vague tweets and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, just debate the issue. Why don't you guys get together? I thought you were all about the marketplace of ideas. Just hash it out.
His ideas, Gavin.
Yeah, anyway.
Candace is afraid of his ideas.
And also, it's worth noting, as someone pointed out in the comments, that Candace Owen is genuinely pretty anti-Semitic, or at least she's defended straight up anti-Semitism.
That was why I threw out that there may be a chance that her.
Yeah. And again, it's not like that makes her stated position somehow incorrect, that genocide is bad. Obviously not. But if you are wondering why certain people on the right wing all of a sudden seem to care more about Muslim folks than, maybe they did in previous instances, might have something to do with that. It's possible.
It's definitely worth throwing out there, because it's not like here's what's fucked up. A lot of people have talked about this. The misappropriation and the weaponization of allegations of anti-Semitism are actually problematic, because there are a lot of people in the United States who are legitimately anti-Semitic, and people like Jackson Hinkle who are legitimately anti-Semitic and, who legitimately indulge in, like, ancient anti-Semitic talking points and also modern anti-Semitic talking points, like the people who are obsessed with the New World Order and George Soros and all that kind of fucking shit, right? And the white future. And now he's like fucking, draping himself in whatever the, like, fucking scarves that people wear. Which felt like just like the most poser shit in the world to me. Like, I agree. Like, sometimes you're at a protest and you're like the only white guy there, and you're like, oh, I stick out like a sore thumb. Like, there was a picture of that protest that we were at, Gavin, for Palestinian, liberation. And it was on Reddit, and it got like a bunch of controversy on the KC subreddit. But you could just very easily just see me like standing right there next to
Really?
Salisa, because I like stick out like a fucking store thumb. I'm like in like,
Oh, you got to send
you know,
me that.
yeah, I'll find it and show it to you. But anyway, it was just like, I get why, people who mean well, but like, you don't have to like fuck it. You can tell when somebody's being a poser. Like, don't dress how you don't dress if you're going to like a fucking protest. Just be yourself and stand in solidarity. But like, he does that shit, and he like acts like he's the most like devout champion of Palestinian rights, and it's really just because he's an anti-Semite. Like, you have to be able to call out both of those things and say, hey, that guy, he's trying to misappropriate a very legitimate and a very powerful and a very, valid movement that doesn't want anything to do with him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.